This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so free agency, at least the crazy part of it where you're refreshing your Twitter feed 24/7 and you're trying to figure out that the Browns do this, that the Browns trade for this guy. That in large part is done. Now, there are some moves that are waiting to being made, right? We're going to wait and see what happens to Lamar Jackson, as that I anticipate that happens over the course of the entire offseason. I don't think that's going to be even remotely close to over at the end of this month. Same thing with the Aaron Rodgers trade. Same thing with some things with like Jerry Jeudy and other pieces that maybe are waiting for some big pieces to fall in place in order to kind of maneuver around it. But that being said, the Browns have made free agency moves. Now it's time to see who those free agency moves signal is now on the hot seat. And the first guy I'm going to start with is Anthony Schwartz. Now, we know Anthony Schwartz is on the hot seat as a wide receiver. He's not been a good wide receiver. This is not why he's on the hot seat. The reason Anthony Schwartz is on the hot seat, or at least he's going to have some competition this year, is because the main thing of value that Anthony Schwartz provides on the football field is his ability to be a gunner on special teams. He's actually really good at being a gunner on special teams. These are his special teams grade. He's graded out as a 57.8 special teamer in 2022, 63.6 this year. He's had his moments, highs, lows, ups, downs of being a good special teamer, especially as a tackler. And keep in mind, some of this counts when he was tasked to do offensive stuff on special teams. He's much better as a defensive special teams player. The reason his spot is kind of in trouble is because the Browns signed Mike Ford. Now, Mike Ford is no lock to make the roster. I don't think he's even remotely close. He's not good enough at corner to demand that he's going to be a lock, and he's not even that good of a special teamer to demand that he's going to get a lock. What he's going to do is compete with Anthony Schwartz for special teams reps. Now, if Mike Ford is vastly superior than Anthony Schwartz, then Mike Ford will make the team. If Anthony Schwartz is equal to or greater than Mike Ford, Mike Ford's not going to make the team. That's kind of how this is shaking out. Now, this is somebody who has worked for Detroit. He was a decent special teamer in Detroit. His last 2 years in Denver and Atlanta, he's been kind of forgettable. And he very penalized too for a special teamer last year, 4 penalties. So again, is he a good gunner? You can make the argument, yes, but I don't think he's a lock at anything. Ironically enough, he's playing for Bubba Ventrone. He's no Bubba Ventrone, a special team. So saw a lot of people making a big deal out of this signing or saying that he's a roster lock. I don't think Mike Ford's a roster lock. I think he's brought in to compete with Anthony Schwartz for that gunner position to see if Anthony Schwartz can maintain that spot. Because I do think if this is equal to in skill at gunner, then it's going to be Anthony Schwartz's position, because theoretically Anthony Schwartz offers way more value than Mike Ford can, because at least Anthony Schwartz is still fast, plays wide receiver, versus Mike Ford, who is not especially fast and does not play wide receiver. He plays corner, a position the Browns have a plethora of talent in, and that's going to make it even harder for him to make the room there, since he's not really a position corner ever. Maybe he'll play some snaps in the slot. Again, if Mike Ford shows some value in the slot, he will probably make the team, and if he's a better gunner than Anthony Schwartz. But that's going to be the battle. It's like this cross-positional battle where it's like, hey, how much value is Anthony Schwartz giving you at wide receiver versus how much value is he giving you at gunner? And then on the other side of that battle, it's going to be Mike Ford. How much value is he giving you at gunner versus how much value is he giving you at slot? If he can play slot, he'll make the team. But they're both going to be gunners. And since they're both gunners, and since that's going to be what they're primarily going to do on game day, they're theoretically, in reality, really competing against each other. So those are some of the Browns on the hot seat. Let's go to the next guy. Tommy Togiai is another guy that's on the hot seat. Now, a lot of people are throwing Jordan Elliott here, and I think Jordan Elliott does have a place of conversation on this list. But Tommy Togiai is the guy I'm like, hey, something's got to change or else I can't justify him being on the team anymore. He's had one good game. Well, two good games. He had a good game against Pittsburgh and a good game against Carolina, first and last game. He's been awful. Like 26, 28, like some of the worst grades you'll ever see. And like a high enough snap count to where it's very concerning. He had a 39.8 PFF grade his rookie year. That dropped to a 37.3. That's not NFL level. He's got to be better than that. If he does not show that he's better than that, I cannot see how they can justify it. With some of the other guys who are going to be on this list that are going to be evaluated, they have certain traits that make me feel like, hey, Jim Schwartz can feel like he could do something with that. Tommy Togiai has none of those traits, so he really needs to play better on this camp. It's a pivotal camp for him because not only could he be out the Browns, there's an argument you can make that he could be out the league. All right, the next guy is Harrison Bryant. Now, this one's pretty obvious with the signing of Jordan Akins. Now, Jordan Akins is a receiving tight end. He doesn't really block that much. He doesn't have that much potential as a blocking tight end. He's going to be receiving, which is a problem for Harrison Bryant because Harrison Bryant is also a receiving tight end. Harrison Bryant has not gotten the weight on him that the Browns thought he would add. They thought he would probably end up being at 250, 260 and be a hybrid blocking guy and a tight end and somebody you can even throw in the backfield as an H-back every once in a while. He just hasn't grown into a frame that allows that on a consistent basis, and he hasn't developed the strength that allows that. He's not a great blocker. Well, he's a decent blocker. He's a decent pass blocker. He's just not passable enough at all the blocking and versatile enough to be able to justify him being out there, especially when he's been a pretty mediocre receiver over the last few years, which has been the disappointment with Harrison Bryant. He doesn't have to wait. He doesn't have the skill as a wide receiver, and this is where you run into issues with him. And now you're adding in a guy in Jordan Akins who had 5 touchdowns last year. Now 2 in one game, but 5 touchdowns. That's more than Harrison Bryant had all year. I mean, it's more. He's had more in one game than Harrison Bryant had all year. So the competition is stark there. He's a better receiver than Harrison Bryant, and he's a bigger body there, so you can leave him in the run game. So that's the big problem for Harrison Bryant, is that he's such a mediocre receiver, and the more the Browns shift towards Deshaun Watson's skill set, the more relevant it will be that a tight end can be a better receiver, and he's just not fitting the mold for the Cleveland Browns anymore. Remember, he was drafted while Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, while the Browns were running a lot of 11 and 13 and 12 personnel, but now they live in a world where they're going to play 11, 12, and virtually no 13 personnel, and that's not going to be a world where he has a lot of run in here. Remember, the tight end group has drastically changed during his tenure, and I think he's going to be a casualty of that change because I just don't see a path for him to be a tight end 3 because he's just simply not a good enough blocker, and there's always fringe guys like a Kevin Rader that you can get that will be a better blocker than Harrison Bryant is. And while he's a decent pass blocker, he's not a great one. That's the problem with him. So he can't really be a tight end 3. He has tight end 3 receiving skills, but not tight end 3 blocking skills. That's going to be a problem for him. He's got to get bigger. So that's not Jordan Elliott, Harrison Bryant. The next guy on this list I want to talk about is Jordan Elliott. Now, Jordan Elliott is somebody that I can see Jim Schwartz looking at and going, I can fix that. Right? Those problems are fixable. The problem with Jordan Elliott is that the problems has existed for 3 seasons, and he's gotten worse according to PFF. Rookie year, 55.3 PFF grade. This next year, 41.6, and it dropped to a 40 this year, right? Each year, the snaps go up, 300, 464, 703, and the grades get lower. That's a giant concern for a guy in Jordan Elliott. Now, he has shown flashes. He's shown moments that he could be a decent defensive tackle in the NFL, and he does have tremendous length. He has good strength. He bulked up over the last season. But again, the production is just abysmally not there. It has not been there with him. The physicality on a consistent basis has not been there for him. The mentality on a consistent basis has not been there for him. And again, 3 years in the decline. Now, are they going to give up on him immediately? No, but are they going to give up on him if they feel like this is going in the same direction it has the last 3 years at the end of camp? Yes. And again, similar to Tommy Togiai. You put together 3 horrible years like this in decline, like your snaps go up and your play goes worse. That's a recipe to get yourself out the NFL. So he desperately needs to have a great camp this year, because that's the only thing separating him from being a Cleveland Brown versus being in the XFL next year, because that's the reality for Jordan Elliott. If he does not play better this year, and I mean, I don't even mean this year. I mean like the Hall of Fame game, bro. Like if he does not have a better preseason this year, then I don't know how they can continue to justify having him on the roster, especially with Tommy Togiai, when they've been 2 of the worst defensive tackles in all of football per snap. Like, not even exaggerating. That's what Pro Football Focus tells you. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but it's a good way to look at it and go, okay, this is a general barometer of what this player has done. And you're not going from a 40 PFF grade to saying, oh, well, if you look at the tape, he's great. Like, that's just not happening, right? So that's a problem for him. Another guy I think is a little bit on the hot seat is Alex Wright. And the reason I say Alex Wright is on the hot seat is because I smell a position change for him. Because if you look at the edge defenders that the Browns have been interested in and the Browns have gone after, they're a precisely different mold than Alex Wright. Alex Wright is a big edge, 6'5", 267. He's a big old dude. The problem is he's not very athletic. He doesn't have great bend. If you get him out on the edges in any kind of space, he gets just taken advantage of horribly, especially in the run game. Whenever you run outside zone, they almost target him. He's not a fit for edge defender in a 4-3, and he's definitely not a fit in as an edge defender in a wide 9-4-3, like where there's more space. I just don't see how he can survive as an edge defender in this new defense. So what has to change for him? He's probably gonna have to move inside the 3-tech, where that competition is going to be even tighter, because we've already talked about Tommy Togiai being a guy who's fighting for his NFL life this offseason. We're already talked about Jordan Elliott, who's a guy who's going to be fighting for his NFL life. And now you, Alex Wright, are joining that competition with no years of experience at 3-tech. You've never played 3-tech before. You're doing a position change, and you're undersized at the position because you're under 300 pounds. He seems like a classic case of, hey, he was drafted with the last guy, doesn't fit with the next guy. I don't see his fit here. Now, maybe I could be wrong here. Maybe he does have a fit. Maybe there's something about his game that I have not seen yet that I am not applying to this conversation. So I'm going to leave room for me to be wrong here. And sometimes I am wrong on these things, but I just don't really see Alex Wright thriving in this defense, because it doesn't seem like something that's going to suit him as an edge defender. And if you push him inside, I don't know if he's physical enough to make that work. And he's certainly not like big enough to make, he's big enough to make it work eventually. But right now, he's not big enough to make that work. So I don't see where he fits in this defense physically. I don't see where he fits in this defense schematically. Maybe there's a role here or there he can be in, but as far as like a 3-down role, I don't see it. Because you can't have him wide on the island in this defense the way I saw him get taken advantage of in wide zone, the way I saw him get taken advantage of by tackles and pass rush. Like, it was not a great rookie year. And part of it was because he was playing edge rusher, and he's playing edge rusher in space, and he's going to be in more space this year. I think that's a disaster for him. So those are the Browns that I feel like are on the hot seat, and the free agent moves so far have signaled that these guys are on the hot seat. Let me know who you think is on the hot seat down in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night.